All right, the Memphis Tigers football making some history this season, undefeated, ranked in the top 25 for the first time in years. The buzz is real. The questions are mounting. How far can they go?
That's why we brought in John Maddox, longtime Memphis sports analyst with On3, who's been watching this program for decades. John, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us today. Appreciate it.
John, appreciate you being here, brother.
Thanks a lot.
Let's get to it. Everybody is talking about the Memphis Tigers and what they've done so far this year. From all your years of experience of covering the Tigers, what do you think about this team?
I think this team's built a little different, and I know Coach Silverfield, you've heard him say that over and over, and I really feel like they are because these guys love each other. They want to be around each other all the time, and they're not turning the ball over much themselves. They're taking the ball away, and they're playing for each other. And, you look, and the offense goes out there, does turn it over. Defense is like, we got you. They get the ball right back. So I think this is one of the most talented teams Memphis has had, and the challenge coming in was how do you get 70 new guys to buy into each other? And I think that's been kind of the remarkable thing, is you can just tell these guys are all in, pardon the expression, with each other.
So they've been running with swagger this year, but how much do you think the success is scheme versus just having the right talent?
Well, I think it's a combination of both, Richard. It's, Brendan Lewis has been the difference. Memphis has not had a mobile quarterback for a very, very long time, a true guy that can change the game with his legs. And to me, that has just really been the big difference, is that, now Coach Cramsey can scheme things a little differently. And then on the other side, you have to account for that, right? And then on the defensive side of the ball, just so much speed. And Coach Hankins we call him a crazy person because he's very stoic, but he's chaos. He wants to create chaos, and that's what they do a good job of. And again, it's just that camaraderie, and I think a lot of it is scheme. But look, it don't matter. The X's and O's don't matter unless you got the Jimmys and Joes.
Yeah, that's what they say.
And that's just how it is. And Ryan Silverfield has proven how good of a recruiter he is, and how great. Memphis just doesn't miss on a lot of guys. That's the thing. They don't bring a lot of guys in and like, well, that didn't work out. So I think that's really been the key, is just a combination. Both those things have to work together.
Now, while everybody takes, pride in being in the top 25, hey, you're in the top 25, you've cracked that mold or whatever, really the goal is college football playoffs for this team.
Yeah.
For some teams, top 25 might be the goal, but for this team, it seems like the college football playoffs is the goal. So how real are we, how close are we getting to having that real conversation?
Well, I think the realness sets in starting October 18th when you go on the road to UAB, and that's a game, of course, Memphis should handle. But, you've got South Florida, Tulane, Navy, a road trip to East Carolina. So, and South Florida is a team, they're going to learn who they are this week when they go to North Texas or play North Texas. So
is North Texas still undefeated?
Yes, they are still undefeated. They're 5-0, but much like Memphis, they're untested. That's the thing. Navy has kind of untested. South Florida, they didn't fail their first big test with Miami, but they didn't play very well. This second half is going to tell the story for a lot of teams. I think it's real. I think, the winner of the American, I would bet you guys paychecks that the winner of the American goes to college football.
I bet his is bigger than mine.
But I would really think that, that's kind of the thought process, is whoever can win this league is going. And, Memphis has shown, they run the way they play. As they say, the way they play football travels and can win you games in November.
Now, talking about something that will most doubtedly win games for Memphis is turnovers. Turnovers are huge for Memphis this year. In fact, I think they're tied for third in the nation in takeaways. How much is that feeling this run? Do you feel like Memphis's defense is legit?
Yeah, I think they are. But again, nobody's really been tested yet. But I feel like they are legit. And turnovers are the story, man. If the thing about turnovers, too, I've watched a lot of football, is it's not just when you turn or that you turn the ball over. Let's say you're on your own 20 and you throw a long interception out to the 45. Well, that's terrible. It's not the end of the world, right? It's a punt. But when you are on your own 5 and you throw an interception to the 15, like Tulsa found out this week, that's where the turnovers really play in. And then the flip side of that is, you're third in the nation in turnovers, that's fine, but you got to cash those in, and that's something Memphis has done a really good job of this year, is when opponents make mistakes, they make you pay for that mistake.
So Tulsa was not, I don't think, I worked in Tulsa for a long time, worked in Tulsa for a long, long time, and Tulsa football had a little bit of that prestige, like they were close to being an up-and-comer, right, in the conference. And so to watch Memphis just manhandle Tulsa, and I mean just completely manhandle Tulsa, and I'm sorry, my TU people, was a little bit, to me, like an eye-opener of, okay, this Tigers team is on a mission. Unfortunately, Arkansas not as good of a win as you would like. So these games become crucial. How important is this bye week that they've got, though, to get them to kind of like reset and get refocused to the second half of the season?
Well, you know, it's one of those things, if you guys are NFL fans, you know, coaches talk about all the time. Do we want, you know, we've secured our playoff spot. Do we want to rest all of our guys this week so they're healthy for next week? And, you know, there's two schools with that, right? Well, the argument is, well, no, you lose momentum. And I think that's kind of what Coach Schillfield's really going to have to balance here is Memphis been on a roll. There's no doubt about it. And is the week off what they need? Now, I will say it's probably advantageous that you're coming back to play a UAB team that's down versus we got a week off and now we got to turn around and play South Florida. But I think the bye, you know, they've got some guys, he says it all the time, and all coaches say, nobody's not injured this time of the year. It's are you hurt or are you injured? And
say that all the time.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing is they've got some guys that are banged up that, you know, could use a week of a few days off of not hitting each other. And, you know, we talked about this Monday in the press conference that, you know, even though these guys love each other, they need to get away from one another for a little bit. And, you know, academics kind of reset, as you said, that's a great way to put it, refocus. But I also think that coming out of that is where coaches make their money, right? Is coming out, you've got 18 to 23-year-olds, and they've been off for 4 or 5 days, and now you've got to get them back into that role really quick because UAB, while they're down this year, they're gonna throw everything they got at you. So got to be ready. You still could.
Now, we brought up South Florida a lot on this program, and obviously talking about Memphis's buzz. I'm sure you've heard the chatter on social media. A lot of talk about that USF-Memphis game being possibly could ESPN College Game Day come here. How realistic is that, and do you think what would that mean for our area if that were to happen?
Well, I will say that when I heard it the first part of the week, I was, 0% chance because, and that has nothing to do with Memphis USF. That's not any disrespect, but you've got Texas. I think it's Texas A&M.
Yeah. What other games are on there?
Yeah, LSU. You got Ole Miss, Oklahoma. So you have two top 10 teams probably there. But the Memphis SMU game day in 2019 is something most people will never forget. It was an unbelievable day. Never thought it would happen. It took all apologies to Tulsa, took a missed field goal by a Tulsa place kicker to put Memphis in that position. And look, anytime, Coach talks about this, time you can see the big jumping tiger on television and look across that scroll and see a number next to Memphis's name, it does nothing but good things for the program. So it would be a huge day. I buy into the coach speak, I guess. I don't think they're really focused on stuff like that. It is game at a time. And, the truth is Memphis and USF both have to take care of business to get to that position.
Yeah, I think that gets overlooked sometimes. And to your point, sometimes we label it as coach speak, but sometimes it really is the way. Because in football, it's such a disciplined sport. It's Monday you do the same thing, Tuesday you do. It never changes throughout the course of the week. And so for those coaches, while having game day, to your point, Rich, would be great, the marketing department would love it.
Yeah.
The athletic director would love it, right? All those people would eat that up. But the football staff itself would have to ignore it because otherwise your players can get distracted and mess around and lose a game that they need to win. And so while that would be great, in some ways it might be more of a distraction than a help.
What is it Nick Saban calls it? Rat poison?
Rat
Yes.
poison.
Yeah, you guys giving us
to say that.
giving these guys their rat poison.
Yeah. So before we get out of here, I know you have other things to do besides hang out with us all day, even though we are a joy to hang out with.
Absolutely.
Talk a little bit about what you've seen. Just take a step back and say, what have you seen from Memphis fans just as they're enjoying this run by the Tigers? Because you don't want to lose sight of enjoying the run.
No, and I tell people that all the time. And one of the things I said a couple weeks ago was, those of us been around a long time. If you would have told me in 2014 that Memphis would have the longest winning streak in the country, would have a 46-game streak of scoring more than 20 points, would have been to 12 straight bowl games. The only question I would have expected to be asked is which mental institution would you like to be sent to next? But I think Memphis fans can sometimes get a little ahead of themselves and not have the appreciation for that. But it's been a run. I think fans are excited, and that's great. Is that the fan base is engaged, because that hasn't always been the case here, guys. The Memphis fan base wasn't always, well, it's still a basketball town, but they weren't always engaged with Memphis football. And I think you've kind of seen that change over the last few years. And this has the potential to be a special season. I mean, now even other than 2019, where the big prize was the New Year's Six game, right? The Cotton Bowl, that was the big prize. Now you can do something even more special. And you legitimately, if you get in there, the odds are against you, but you have a chance to go win a national title. And I think that's one thing fans shouldn't lose sight of is how special and a privilege it is to even be talked about in that part of the conversation.
Yep.
You can catch his work on on3memphis.com. The Tiger Sports Report. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you, John.
Guys.
Handling your business as always. We appreciate it. We got to get you back on here.
Anytime.